Hi guys, I'm Sushmita.
Hey guys, I'm Shalini. Welcome to our podcast, Fashionably Awkward.
Hi, good
Hello, hi
afternoon.
Sneha. Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good, man. I'm Sushmita, by the way.
Hi, Sushmita. Nice to finally see you. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Same here.
Hi, Shalini.
Hi, Sneha.
And how do you two know each other?
We are college friends.
Yeah, so we both actually studied the same thing. So we were in School of Fashion Technology in Pune. So we were doing fashion
right,
design. I
right,
was doing fashion design. She was doing fashion communication. So we were
right,
in the
right,
same hostel as well for a year. So our friendship has
nice.
stayed for the longest time now.
The funny part is like we were in Bombay together, living in the same city, and we would
Same house
barely get
also.
yeah, same house also. Like except like once or twice, like we have
Yeah,
never shot it whenever we are in the same city. We have always shot podcasts when I'm in Ranchi and she's in Bombay, and it is so
really.
like so stupid. But that is how it is. Like whenever we are in Bombay,
So
we
that's what
always
happens. Yeah, yeah,
get
yeah.
busy with our own lives and we have other
Yeah,
things
yeah,
to
yeah.
focus on. We never get the time to because you're working on multiple things. So
Yes,
you
yeah,
don't know
yeah.
which one you have to
And plus,
focus
Bombay
on.
is not the most like infrastructurally, if you want to meet
Yeah,
anyone or make a plan to meet outside, you have to plan in advance.
yeah,
It's honestly
agree.
not practical anymore to do too many physical meetups. Like for instance, even my business partner Amranani, she
Hmm.
travels between Bombay and Delhi, but she's primarily based in Delhi, and
Okay.
I'm based in
Hmm.
Bombay. But the very fact that she's in this city, she's in Bombay at least twice a month, and we barely get a
Hmm.
chance to meet in person. We are almost always connected online. I love the title of your. I think one of the reasons why I also said yes to you was that it's called Fashionably Awkward,
Hmm.
which is something that I awkwardly resonate with because the way I look at personal style, even though it's inspired by what draws me, it also makes me
Hmm.
kind of stand out for sometimes for the right or wrong reasons depending on the environment. So I think that was the first reason why I just said immediately yes. But you reached out to me at a time where I'm also kind of within this precipice between finding a balance between luxury, fashion, design, architecture, and now tech. So it's becoming so diverse, especially for someone with my experience. And even as a consultant, the options are not limited anymore. Pursue certain kinds of roles, certain kinds of
Hmm.
projects. So I think that I can't thank you enough for reaching out to me because even I feel that maybe through this conversation, I also get to have certain epiphanies about where I see myself in a couple of years down the line. So yeah, but that's just my way of saying thank you.
When we look at your career, like it spans to a wide spectrum. Like you come from branding and marketing communication, then luxury brand storyteller, then also academic leadership.
Yeah.
And like your Instagram says design culturalist, which I'm very curious to know about. And also, I believe that a lot of our audience member is also not like they are not aware of the term. So just take us through your journey. Like, tell us about it, all about it, about yourself and your profession, everything.
Yeah, this would have been 2006, between 2006
Oh,
and 7.
wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so this it was a very I mean digital marketing was just about kind of,
Mhm.
with marketing also taking an interesting shape, moving away from traditional practice to and at that time Facebook was just about coming up as a social networking platform, but it wasn't a medium for marketing just as yet. So it was
Yeah,
limited
right.
to mailers and web banners.
Mhm.
E-commerce also wasn't really it was just about, kind of
And
taking
yeah,
shape.
considering Indian market, definitely nothing was there
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
Like to 2006, I don't think anything was there.
Yeah, and honestly, I came back because I wanted to start working immediately. I didn't want to
Hmm.
just sit idle. So I got this job at this advertising agency. I did work with two advertising agencies for about one and a
Hmm.
half 2 years. While I would say average at it, I did realize that, okay, you know what, maybe short format copy is not my forte. I need to go
Hmm.
back to my original kind of, focus of getting into journalism. So I eventually started working with Better Photography. But that was my first
Mm-hmm.
magazine job. It was such an eye-opening experience, an incredible learning experience, because I got to learn how to, put a publication together. And interestingly, not only work editorial, but also work on a lot of brand solutions projects because a photography
Mm-hmm.
magazine could not survive with just content or just
Yeah.
Makes
subscription.
sense.
It
Hmm.
had to,
Mm-hmm.
so we had a lot of great clients, primarily cameras and software and, lens brands
Mm-hmm.
that, would do branded content for the magazine. So I worked on some of those projects, and I truly realized what kind of metal and caliber it took to run a magazine. So that was an
Mm-hmm.
incredible experience, of not only shaping the magazine, because I was working as a sub-editor. Sub-editor's job is to not only copy edit, but also, work with the editorial leadership to really structure the magazine
Curate.
with every edition, really curated, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and this was my first magazine job, so I was also learning on the job. I also started learning. I picked up photography skills as well, very
Oh,
basic though.
wow.
But I
Nice.
had the opportunity to, yeah, to also just review cameras, which was an amazing experience. In fact,
Hmm.
Yeah,
my
it
first
is.
digital camera was thanks to, a recommendation from the then photo editor of that magazine. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that was
Nice.
while it had its ups and downs, it also solidified the fact that okay, I belonged in journalism, I belonged in
Mm-hmm.
magazine journalism, and not in advertising. But
Mm-hmm.
interestingly, I also learned very rigorously and very painfully rather that running a magazine involved not just creating content, but finding relationships, meaningful relationships with brands that trust your magazine's
Yeah.
voice and
Magazine. Hmm.
are willing to support it, right?
Hmm.
So that kind of kind of allowed me to think outside of the purview of what it takes to be not just a writer, a capable writer,
Mm-hmm.
but someone who really embodies the voice of the brand. So I took that
Yeah.
knowledge
Agree.
from photography, and I worked with Femina, which is again
Mm-hmm.
a incredible experience. They make you work. They make you work. And
Mm-hmm.
how? That was an incredible opportunity because A, it was Femina. It was the magazine that
Yes.
someone like me, of my generation, read when we were growing up.
Yes. Hmm.
Yeah.
We would collect it, and then like spiral bind it.
Hmm.
I miss the culture of spiral binding. Spiral binding magazines, Nat
Together.
Geo
Hmm.
magazines especially, but even Femina magazines.
Hmm.
So that was an incredible opportunity because it, again, it was such a multifarious role where I was actually leading the brand solutions magazines that we would bring out. So it was like two wedding
Mm-hmm.
issues, two annual wedding issues, one
Hmm.
travel
Mm-hmm.
book, two cooking books. It was mad. These are just, special editions that were brought out just to
Hmm.
appease to advertisers. And again,
Yes.
Yeah.
it was kind of like, and it was such an exciting role because I was not only the editor of those issues, but I was the single member,
Single.
Mm-hmm.
running point on everything,
Hmm.
the editorial calendar, the themes, coordinating, commissioning stories to writers. It was an incredible experience,
Like
and
360-degree job. Yeah.
fully 360-degree,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I was doing advertorials for the main magazine. I was running point and leading this, and then I was also I also did manage to write for the main edition because I didn't want it
Mm-hmm.
to be relegated to just oh, this editor does only brand solutions, or this copy editor does
Hmm.
only
Uh,
solutions.
Yeah.
But it was an incredible, not only an incredible work experience, but an incredible working community. Primarily female colleagues who I am still good friends with today. Our friendship has lasted well over a decade, which I'm incredibly amazed by, and an incredible group of women to learn from as well. So
Yeah.
again, I learned not only
definitely.
to write stories, but pursue the stories that mattered.
Hmm.
At a
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
for a publication that stood beyond just being, just content for a specific kind of audience.
Hmm.
We were
Yeah.
really pursuing, and that was such a good team because we were really pursuing the hard-hitting stories. We were doing investigative stories. We were
Mm-hmm.
also doing stories that really concerned our audience.
Hmm.
So that
Mm-hmm.
experience taught me to pursue the right kind of stories, even though we were considered to be a
Mm-hmm.
fluff, kind of publication.
So it
And
wasn't
yeah,
just confined to passion.
It
Yeah,
wasn't at all. Yeah, in
exactly.
fact,
Yeah, that's
absolutely not.
very interesting. Yeah, that's very
And
interesting
that's
because
interesting that you
yeah,
say that as well, Shani, because I didn't join Femina because it was a
fashion.
I mean it yes, why it was a I mean back then why it was this I was saying this would be back in 2012. I didn't join it because of its strong fashion content and beauty content, but the very fact that it was a strong publication, like the content was
Right.
Yeah,
really
Yeah.
highly regarded, right?
Yes,
Like
yes,
yeah,
yes. I remember.
the fashion and beauty team were on point with not
Hmm.
only doing really, really good and really solid editorials,
Yeah.
but
hmm,
also, yeah, but also setting trends, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
I think, and
yeah,
even during that time, like social media was not that affluent. Like people did not have access to fashion content or makeup content or anything related to lifestyle as much on like screens. So I think these
true.
magazines were a great way for people to know what is in trend, what other people are using. So I think it
Yeah,
connected with the audience that was there that time. It hit the right points for the audience. So I think it was a really big impact, and I remember that because I used to
yeah.
see my mom read those magazines and talk about them, so it makes sense. Yeah.
and I also like the fact that it wasn't confined to fashion because whenever I have this conversation with other people who are not from our industry or hasn't like or not even interested in fashion, like they we often assume that fashion is just glamour, but
Yeah.
every aspect of your life reflects it, and it's also like reflection of the society, the socio-economic culture, like political scenarios in the country. So I feel when
Absolutely.
you go beyond fashion and cover every aspect of life and convey it through a fashion magazine, like not necessarily like just pointing out few aspects which are like related to style and fashion, but also
Yeah.
speaking about the socio-economic status of any society. That is quite
Yeah,
interesting because
absolutely.
then you're catering to a large number of audience who would like read it and grasp from it. So that is something which I find very interesting.
You're absolutely right, Shalini, because
Yeah.
and I think I joined that magazine with no expectations, but
Mhm.
I also knew that, because this was such a shift from a very technical publication. Like photography is technical, even though it's
Yeah.
it's something that everyone could enjoy and explore as a hobby. But moving to a publication that has a strong legacy, as
Mhm.
well as an expectation from the target audience that you do not want to be yet another magazine that is telling women what they should do. So we were
Yeah.
very, at least I remember when I was working there, that there was a very strategic attempt at finding that balance between your superficial content, which is meant to inspire, which is
Hmm.
your fashion, your beauty pages,
Yeah.
and then you
Mhm.
had food, and then you had sexual health, and
Hmm.
Yeah.
also women of incredible metal and inspiration to sharing their stories. Like I remember I would write stories primarily for the beauty and health section,
Hmm.
and
Mhm.
then the following month I was called to interview Miss India's because that was the property of the magazine.
Hmm.
And in the
Mhm.
following month, I was doing an investigation on how this woman was a whistleblower. Her own husband, who actually sold, he was a professor who sold, engineering question papers to students, and
Hmm.
she was actually instrumental in blowing that case wide open. And I
Oh.
remember traveling all the way to Kalyan, somewhere
Mhm.
to her home to interview her. And she was someone who was obviously emotionally rattled, but she knew that what she did was right. And then the
Mhm.
next day, I'm back on my desk, curating this content. So completely agree, Shani. I think I
Yeah.
don't think I would have made certain decisions today in terms of the way that I see or collaborate with different projects if it weren't for this experience. Because and being open-minded to these experience also matters, right? Because of
Yeah.
course,
Agreed.
yeah, and I was someone who also said, you know what, I don't think I will ever get an experience of this kind at any other magazine. I thought, you know what, let me just do what I have to do, and explore whatever options that I could. So yeah,
Yeah.
incredible learning at and Femina, even though it was such a short stint. I was barely there for 2.5 years. While I'm doing this, at the back of my mind, I'm thinking maybe I and again, this is somewhere you're in your early 20s, and there is a level of insecurity because you are seeing the people around you doing incredible work, just like climbing the ladder of leadership and really making a name for themselves while you're still figuring out what to do because I had studied this one program with a certain goal and I'm still middling somewhere. So I knew that I had to be ruthless in some manner to be what I wanted to be, but also be very clear about the content and the relationships that I wanted to build. So
Yeah.
I actually moved on from Femina because even though it was a rewarding experience, it really it became overbearing at one point, and I knew that there was only something that so much that I could do. So
Yeah.
yeah, just to kind of tie this to a knot in some way. So I continued working for other publications, primarily Brown Paperback. I also worked with Exchange for Media, which is a marketing and a advertising publication, which again introduced me to such a rewarding community of brand managers, marketing managers, advertising heads, getting to learn how to run a brand. So I knew early on that there's this common thread of brand solutions that I had to
Yeah.
kind of keep parallel. And I knew that I couldn't lean on writing being my only core skill. I knew that I had to diversify my skill
Yeah.
set, and I'm so grateful for that intuition. Even though, again, you're in such a competitive environment, insecurity is going to swallow you whole. But I'm so grateful that I had that intuition to say, you know what, I think I need to diversify my skills. I cannot lean on just being a writer. I actually learned a lot of the brand building, strategic thinking towards content building, that approach that I carry with me now in my consulting work. It's all because of my journalistic experience. I don't think
Definitely.
I would have been able to lead a publication like Elle Decor for
Yeah.
4.5 years if it weren't for my experiences at everything, whether it was working for an ad agency, working for all of these publications, given the fact that I took the onus of doing every odd job. Like even at Elle Decor, I remember my first week at Elle Decor was literally trolling through the archives to see how the content evolved from the first publication to the current
To the
publication.
current.
And I literally just created a database of content. Like I remember being maniacal in my approach there because I knew that again, the format, the medium is the same, but the content is so different. The
Yeah.
industry is promising, but not as big as fashion or
Right.
jewelry or watches for that matter. Because again, design and architecture now, as opposed to, 10 years ago, completely different. It was
Of course.
absolutely relegated to luxury only, right? And
Yeah.
like fashion, it has evolved exponentially because of digital access, because of globalization, and because of also changing consumer,
Behavior.
people who are
Perspective.
buying
Yeah.
homes now are becoming younger, right? So
Yes.
Yeah.
their preferences are also changing. So all of this learning happened while I was running point again at El Decor. And at El Decor, I realized, oh my God, this is the industry. Finally, I'm finding a community
Your
where I
niche.
feel
Yeah.
that I can. It was not fashion, it was not beauty, it was not marketing or advertising. It's not photography either. Okay,
Yeah.
this is making sense, right? Even though I felt like an outsider, an imposter, felt like the right industry to make some kind of impact. But
Yeah.
again, you're in a publication when you have to find that fine balance between making friends with brands, making friends with the community, to get the stories that you want to. There is only so much that you can do in a publication. Because a
Yeah.
publication's direction, whether it's for that magazine or whether it's for its many event properties like India Design ID, like the Product Design Awards, Edida, you get a chance to work on all these great properties, but there is only so much that you can do as a editor of a magazine or a journalist working for a design magazine. That your interaction and your mode of impact is only limited to you creating content or you maintaining those relationships. And then again, that intuition rung in my mind, okay, I need to do more. I cannot stay in
Just.
this
Yeah.
place for too long. Otherwise, I'm someone who is very wary of being complacent. And I'm also aware of the fact that complacency, it kind of misdirects what you want to do and where you want to be. And complacency is the best friend of imposter syndrome, in my opinion. Because
Yes.
yeah, because the more you doubt
Interesting point
yourself,
of view.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the more you doubt yourself, the more you feel like, oh, I can only do so much. I won't be able to do
Yeah.
more than this.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's also a very common feeling, right? Especially when you're taken completely out of a comfort zone, you don't know what to rely on.
Mm.
So I knew that I had to, and just then Godrej Properties came calling, saying that they're
Mm-hmm.
looking for someone to manage Marcom for their flagship projects in Vikhroli. I'm like, okay, this is another new.
Mm-hmm.
The only kind of tiny overlap is architecture and design, which I had some knowledge of thanks to Elliot
Yeah.
Law. But they said, oh, but this is real estate.
Hmm.
But the way that we manage our projects will be completely different. So yeah, I
Hmm.
said, so I went from being editor of the magazine to middle management at Godrej. So that
Godrej.
was a full on, uh, fully pushing me, shoving me out of my comfort zone.
Comfort zone.
Uh, yeah, because it basically allowed me to assess now that I'm not a journalist anymore, who can I be as a brand manager? Who can I be
Hmm.
as a communication strategist? So again, learning on
Mm-hmm.
the job, learning a very corporate way of making decisions and
Yeah.
influencing the people that you're working with, right? When
Hmm.
you're in a room full of people who have, had very fancy degrees, international degrees, and
Hmm.
MBAs and all of that, how do you make your voice heard in the best way
Heard.
possible? Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
it's very different from how it works. Like fashion industry, if you compare it from any other industry, it works very different. We usually have like
yeah,
small team and flat organization. There is no
yeah,
hierarchy. So the way
Hmm.
we
yeah.
function is very different. Even I don't know how I would manage to like work in a corporate scenario. Like,
Make that switch, huh?
I didn't know. Yeah, there were times where I really doubted myself.
Hmm.
And my my then bosses would attest to that. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think again, I'm also someone who makes a concerted effort to not
mm-hmm.
lean on or not depend on someone to tell me the answers for too long. I think
Hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
very important, and this is something that I tell my students as well. It's absolutely okay to have anywhere between 50 to 80% of what you want to do,
Hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The latter percentage, just throw it out in the open and see what happens. And it's
Hmm.
okay,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's okay.
Yeah.
I again, you know what? I don't think if it weren't for that experience at Godrej, I don't think I would be able to know how to run successful marketing campaigns, do a direct marketing exercise, organize a handover mela
Mm-hmm.
when the houses were ready, when the homes were ready,
Hmm.
do a completely personalized experience for every single resident, design that experience, record that
Oh,
experience from
nice.
Wow.
from start to finish. I don't think if I didn't allow myself to be like, you know what, आप इसके ऊपर focus करना, whatever you want to achieve out of this, focus on that, but the rest just leave it out
Yeah.
in the open.
Mm-hmm.
Let the universe do what it needs to do to make it
Yeah.
happen. And I
Yeah,
And
know,
I
and
think
ultimately
sometimes,
everything.
yeah,
Yeah,
continue,
go ahead,
Shalini.
Sush. Okay,
Yeah.
so I was saying ultimately everything that you do, whatever job it is, how odd it is, but it
yeah,
shapes you as a human being that you are today. So
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, that is something like
And
we should
yeah,
focus on. Yeah.
and I think I think it's every human's experience in some way that you need to
yeah,
get into that uncomfortable phase and you have to let
yeah,
things show. Like you don't
Flow
have
out.
to
Yeah.
worry. If you worry so much about, how will I pursue this career? How will I do this? How will I do that? I think you just learn throughout the journey and you
yeah,
evolve as a person. You learn new skills and you don't even like looking back, you can say, "Ki, okay, I've learned so many things. It's because you took that
yeah.
risk and took that uncomfortable position and you were like, okay, let me figure it out. I'll try this and let me see. And I think you become a better person, a better everything, I feel. And that is a rewarding
Absolutely.
experience.
And I think there is a certain luxury in that as well, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think one aspect, I do feel sometimes it is very privileged for me to say that
Of
I
course.
was able to
Mm-hmm.
have the choices that I
Yeah.
could, moving from one publication to the next, doing a complete career 180 as well, at a point where I was hitting a peak,
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
wanting to be lead of a magazine and really run the show. But having that privilege comes from a place that I had a great support system of friends and family.
Mm-hmm.
I had my husband who is a voice of reason as
Mm-hmm.
well. I'm also saying this, and I'm very conscious of the fact of saying this because I know that not everyone has that opportunity to do the kind of decisions that I felt that I had to for my own sake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? Like I remember interviewing people for different kinds of jobs, whether it was at Godrej or at El Decor, that they
Mm-hmm.
couldn't stay too long, or they couldn't stay in that company or publication because of familial restrictions, which
Right.
is
Hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
is the sad reality even today, right? That the
Yeah,
fact
it
that
is. It is.
yeah, so I'm the point I'm trying to make it is I am very grateful, even though
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's it's been kind of a interesting upheaval with yeah, with basically nature running its course through most of it. But yeah, and yeah, fast forward to now, and interestingly, while I was at Godrej, and again, this is thanks to such a democratic company like Godrej, that they allowed me
Mm-hmm.
to spend half a day at an institute where I could teach, because I thought, okay, why not pursue teaching as well?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
Wow.
and again, this kida of teaching came from the fact that my team at El Decor,
Mm-hmm.
who were all like young aspiring writers. One
Mm-hmm.
of them, I remember telling me that, oh, you know what, you have such a teacher-like quality. Why don't you pursue teaching? Like, okay, I'm gonna take that as a compliment. So yeah, Instituto Marangoni came to me with an opportunity
Mm-hmm.
to teach a course 6 years
Mm-hmm.
ago, and it started with one course, and now I'm teaching, I think now it's like up to 10 courses,
Oh,
Oh,
which
wow.
I in the
interesting.
term at Marangoni.
Mm-hmm.
And now yeah, I today I kind of balance the tip the scales between consulting and teaching primarily. I
Mm-hmm.
teach at
Yeah.
different institutes, primarily luxury marketing, fashion journalism. I also teach value marketing and green
Mm.
marketing to
Mm-hmm.
UG students. I'm actually going to be starting a new module with another institute, two institutes rather, on design
Okay.
entrepreneurship. Yeah,
Wow.
running
Nice.
your own startup and design entrepreneurship, which is going to
Yeah.
be an exciting experience. Yeah. There's a subject for called marketing mindset, which is a leadership-led course, right?
Okay.
How do you,
Hmm.
as a marketing manager, train yourself to not only focus on honing your technical skills, but also your soft skills in order to
Hmm.
influence the powers that be to make an
Hmm.
impact, right? Or to,
Hmm.
whatever direction that you want to take professionally, and however you want to
Mm-hmm.
help lead the business in a certain direction. So marketing mindset is one, like how do you develop a growth
Wow.
mindset? How do you work towards, at whatever stage you're at professionally, how do you develop leadership qualities?
Hmm.
This
So
sounds
that,
so interesting. I want to go back to
yeah.
college now. We did not have something like this. I still struggle to
I know
deal with
exactly what
such
you mean.
situation. Like,
Yeah,
which is why we have named our podcast Fashionably Awkward, because
yeah,
that's
yeah.
like our core personality. I would love to go back to college and educate myself on these skills.
Yeah, absolutely. Because as far as I know, this is the only kind of fashion business
Mm-hmm.
college institute that offers a program like this, primarily to fashion business students.
Hmm.
But it's such a great program because some students, you know how again, Marangoni is it is an institution of repute. There are certain caliber of students that attend the college. The kids who attend come from different parts of the country.
Yeah.
They come with varying technical skill sets. But
Hmm.
yeah, the
Mm-hmm.
soft skills is something that not a lot of schools they don't prioritize that, because that's
Yeah,
they
Yes.
want
definitely.
students to it becomes an extracurricular activity,
Yeah.
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
But when you're talking about whether you're wanting to work for an existing business, or whether you want to be an entrepreneur, it is such a good program to have, because then
Mm-hmm.
you learn
Definitely.
how to conduct yourself, not only conduct yourself professionally, but also, how do you associate, how do you make your business sellable by
Mm-hmm.
relying on your personal brand? I think that becomes
Hmm.
an important lesson as well. And uh,
Definitely.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think like what you pointed out right now, I think that is the most important part of a business, to be honest. Like making your
absolutely.
personality show through your business is really important, because
Yes.
that is only when the end user will believe in you, believe in the messaging that you're trying to portray, and
Yeah,
also will then buy your product or services. So I think it's really
yeah,
important to show through your personality, show through the ethos and values that you have, and it should reflect in
yeah,
some sort of way through your brand. And that is something that is very difficult. And I think on paper it seemed very easy, but in practical to do that and to be so vulnerable when you are doing a business is very difficult. So I think a course which can help you define how to do that in a more skillful way is really
yeah,
important for today's generation. And I think in the fashion industry and lifestyle industry it's really important, because now
yeah.
consumers are also very aware of what they expect, what they want. Their needs are very specific. They're very aware of what is going on around them. So I think this
Yes.
sort of a course really helps the students in a big way who want to start their own business, at least in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're already seeing that change, given the fact that, I mean, having seen and worked with universities of different calibers, offering
Mhm.
different courses across sectors, it is becoming a requirement that
Hmm.
you empower your students with all the tools that they need to be market ready.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Not only just industry ready, but market ready, right? And again, I reiterate this because it's so important. Whether you are wanting to be a part of a business, an existing
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
business, or whether you want to set out something of your own, people will want to hire you or work with you basis on how you project and present yourself,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
How much are you willing to, um, how much are you willing to explore and develop your own personal brand?
Hmm.
And this is
Mm-hmm.
something that we're seeing as a requirement, even as a consultant. I mean, as a consultant who works with a lot of founder-led, designer-led businesses,
Mm-hmm.
where increasingly it is becoming challenging to differentiate yourselves as a brand that is in a highly cluttered or exceptionally niche market. Whether you sell furniture, whether you sell plastic items, you
Hmm.
still have to have a face or a
Yeah.
personality that is believable and relatable in
Yeah.
order to
Right.
make a connection. Even before even selling, you have to make a connection with our audience,
Right.
right?
Definitely.
When you think of trust, what is the brand that you think of? Who's the face that you think of? When you
Hmm.
think of a value like loyalty, or for that matter, if you're thinking luxury, if when you're thinking about high level craftsmanship or artisanal quality, what are the
Right.
faces that come to mind? What are the brands that come to mind? So
Hmm.
more than ever, founder branding and creating a human connection with your target audience is becoming imperative as part of business growth, business development
Yeah.
and growth.
It totally makes sense because in digital era where we are only able to connect through screen, there is no physical touch or like you can't see gestures. So obviously it does make sense to build that connection through your personal branding and have
Yeah.
that personality so that the audience is able to resonate with you and connect with you
Yes.
emotionally because ultimately we are humans and that is
Yeah.
something like we're losing touch of, I feel.
Absolutely. One of the questions that you asked me earlier was, why do I call myself a design culturist? I
Yeah.
actually credit my partner here, Mrinalini. So
Hmm.
Mrinalini Kadiok and I, we do a lot of projects together where we either work closely with brands to realize what their potential and capability is as a
Hmm.
brand as well as a business. And
Hmm.
we also do really personalized experiences for different
Hmm.
brands,
Yeah.
hands-on direct experiences. So Shani, that's a good point that you point out, right? Because we realize that you cannot only lean on, say, an e-commerce platform or social media,
Yeah.
even though
Hmm.
we fully understand the power of social media, but it takes not just creating and doling out content, but also a strategic approach towards how do you want to engage with your target audience,
Hmm.
engage
Yeah.
with the potential consumer, right? So
Right.
the operative word here, the important word here is engagement, which
Hmm.
unfortunately is lacking right now. Even though digital is accessible and it's cost effective as a platform,
Hmm.
engagement is severely lacking.
Yeah.
You look at our phones, we are not engaged anymore. We are scrolling and skipping through. We are doom
Yeah.
Right.
scrolling into that.
Right.
So we primarily see going back to the hands-on, one-on-one, curatorial experience. So the reason why we call ourselves design culturists is the fact that we rely on culture to engage. By culture, we
Hmm.
mean different mediums,
Hmm.
different engagement formats and different ways to intellectually engage the audience, right? We are not just
Right.
entertaining them for the purpose of curating experience. It
Yeah.
is
Right.
basically quid pro quo. It's an exchange, right?
Right.
Yeah,
For
definitely.
instance, if you are curating something for a textile brand, right? How do
Mm-hmm.
you, like a heritage textile brand, right?
Hmm.
Your consumer is someone who will love heritage textile, who has inherited these textiles,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
whether it's through linen or through saris. You
Hmm.
want to create that resonance with them, but it's very hard to do all of this online. You have to
Hmm.
Yeah.
figure some middle ground between both digital and experiential, and physical and experiential,
Right.
right? So,
Definitely.
Hmm.
so I think the economics of engagement are definitely changing. A lot
Hmm.
of brands, especially in luxury and fashion, are going back to the curated experience. Like, for instance, I was one of my favorite new emerging. I mean, I wouldn't call it new, but definitely to keep in our radar is Re-Ceremonial. They
Yeah.
they created such a beautiful experience of select media and friends, like a round table dinner with a performance. Did a collaboration with different jewelry brands. I don't know if it's
Okay.
different jewelry brands or one jewelry brand, but
Hmm.
every single guest was wearing Re-Ceremonial tailored for them,
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
which
Yeah.
is so hyper customized. And but it's brilliant too, right? You've essentially created 2 months of content from one evening, because every
Exactly.
single guest, it could be
And
like
people
15.
are also going to retain those information because it's
Yeah,
happening live, and
Yeah.
you're going to interact with so many people. So it is going
yeah,
to stay with you for longer than
yeah.
the doom scrolling that we do, because we are consuming so much that we ultimately forget what we saw like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So
No, the
Yeah.
challenge is also becoming the fact that how do you stay fresh? How do you create content and no one else is creating?
Hmm.
Now, see, with fashion, it is easy to do, right? Because it's something that we consume, we see, we are inspired by,
Hmm.
and you
yeah.
can buy it anytime you want. It's
Right.
kind of like a low investment in a way, depending on which brand
Mhm.
that you're engaging with. How do
Right.
you create fresh content for a furniture brand? How do you create fresh
Hmm.
content that no one else is doing for
Hmm.
a home furnishings brand? How do you
Hmm.
Yeah.
create content for someone who does stationery? Like these are investments that
They,
do not occur too often. But
Often.
you,
yeah.
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
but you
And these are
as
like
a brand really,
necessity based purchase. So
right,
obviously,
they're
like
not
Yes.
people would,
necessities. Yeah, yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
So
And I
that
think,
becomes the challenge. Yeah,
yeah, and I think with the examples that you gave, like furniture and things that we don't buy so often, we need to create that
yeah,
impact. We need to touch the pulse of the audience. That what is that one thing that will make them believe in the story that you're selling, or make them invested enough in your story. So that could be these
yeah.
sort of experiences that you just pointed out, that making them
True.
experience the brand, making them experience how the brand feels when you are, it's a part of your life. And I think that
Yeah,
will create such a big impact on that one consumer, and that consumer can essentially, or that one person can spread the word for the brand also. So that is also something that
yeah.
might help brands like these, who have a very niche product and a niche audience. So I think that experience really combines very well with the digital world that we are living in, and competitive world also, I think, that we are living in, to
true.
differentiate yourself as a brand and create your own legacy also.
Absolutely. I think when it comes to design and architecture specifically,
Hmm.
the only way to engage is to really look at how do you build, how do you
Hmm.
make, and
Mhm.
how do you tell that story as authentically as possible. And again, this code of conduct when it comes to brand storytelling needs attention as well, because
Hmm.
as Shalini was also saying, that we are in a space where we want to latch on to trends, and we also want to just surprise or shock and awe just for the heck of it. I
Hmm.
think
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
narrative has to be changed a little bit. And this
Mhm.
becomes a challenge for consultants like us too, who work a lot with brands who look at their competition and say, look at this great content that they're creating. Why aren't we doing the same thing? But
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
as consultants, we have to step forward and say, you know what, we do not want to be in the business of creating the same thing. We
Hmm.
want to really mine your potential as a authentic voice, and then
Hmm.
use that to tell the story that you want to tell. right?
Right.
So
Right.
Exactly.
we have, yeah, sometimes it is and we understand, we empathize with businesses who, feel that there are limited opportunities, and
Yeah.
we
Mhm.
really go through the rigor of not only coming up with the stories, but research, right? How much of
Hmm.
the
Mhm.
research of your market or target audience, your category, your
Hmm.
industry, how much can that feed into the kind of stories that you want to tell? So yeah, it's a challenging business to be in, but it's very exciting because again, the challenges are umpteen, and at least when it comes to the kind of brands that we work with, there's always that middle ground that we can achieve with curating a meaningful experience
Mhm.
offline, as opposed to curating a thoughtful, purposeful, mindful story online.
It
And
makes sense. Like, well, this is the only way to work, I feel. Otherwise, then you won't be able to survive in this digital fashion economy. That's what I feel.
But that's the
yeah.
thing as well. There are people like Mrinalini and me who
Mhm.
have an approach towards a very kind of personalized, meaningful, thoughtful, empathetic approach. And we
Mhm.
are also someone who we don't believe in the concept of templatizing
Hmm.
Yeah.
anything for anyone. And I think
Mhm.
that sometimes tends to be the go-to strategy for a lot of other businesses or
Consultants. Hmm.
consulting
Yeah.
proponents.
Yeah.
But you know what? That's how we appeal to our target audience, right? By saying that, you know what,
Yeah.
when you work with us, this is our approach. This is
Yeah.
how we work with you. We will not say that agar ye aapka problem hai, we will solve it by giving you this template that has worked in the
Hmm.
past. And that
Hmm.
doesn't always work,
Yeah. And
right?
that
So
in itself, I feel, is a new idea because you're not
yeah.
working on a template or a set standard. And I feel that is in itself is refreshing. Like that is something which is new because you're not following a standard rule or
Yeah,
template for it. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah, I think we just spoke about like industries like furnishing, etc. I would want to know a little bit about what your opinion is in terms of the handloom and handicraft industry in India. It
yeah,
has been something that has, matlab, I have visited a lot of these craft clusters in the past when I was in college, and I could
right,
see how people who are running these clusters are losing hope on the market and are losing hope of getting new businesses. So,
right.
what is your opinion on these sorts of businesses who are diving back into the handloom industry and trying to revive it and
Yeah,
make sure that it sustains in the Indian market? Because there's a lot of
yeah.
competition when it comes to fast fashion.
When you look at the handloom industry, there is so much that is, I personally feel, going the right direction by means
Hmm.
of not only empowering brands that are working hand in hand with weavers or with artisans, or
Mhm.
with specific specialists in that craft.
Hmm.
But I feel there are also opportunities now to empower the artisan directly,
Hmm.
by
Mhm.
offering them platforms, by offering
Yeah.
them schemes, by also by leeway of saying, like for instance, there are some amazing institutes across the country
Mhm.
that offer incubator programs to craft entrepreneurs to help
Mhm.
them realize their business, whether they work with the artisan or they are artisans already, right?
Hmm.
I feel that there is no clear solution as to making the complete shift towards handmade.
Hmm.
And I know
Yeah.
that sounds this might and I'm trying to be as realistic as possible,
Yeah.
right?
Definitely.
Because there are pros and cons to fast fashion,
Hmm.
largely more cons than pros.
Hmm.
There are pros and cons to handloom as well, largely more
Mhm.
pros, right?
Mhm.
So with fast fashion, unfortunately, is a global pandemic, I would say,
Hmm. Right.
because
Mhm.
you are catering to a unnecessarily increasing demand
Right.
Yeah.
for clothes that are cheap, that are made quickly,
Poorly.
but in questionable conditions.
Hmm.
That is what the definition of fast fashion is, right? And whereas handloom and handmade is reliant on the craftsperson, the weaver, the maker, to you give them the opportunity to make the product in a comfortable setting, in a
Hmm.
setting
Yeah.
of their choice. Which is why usually, Sushmita, the craft classes that you visited would have been their hometowns, would have been their
Right.
homes,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
So there's a reason why that model of craft making works so beautifully,
So well.
right? Because they are making the product within the comfort of their home, right?
Yeah.
So there is that divide between the two. Fast fashion purely exists to make business.
Yeah.
That's not the same with handloom and handcraft.
Yeah.
The purpose of
Definitely.
handcraft and handloom, the purpose of handmade is to sustain a craft, is to sustain a business model, right? And
Right.
it's to also sustain not only the brand or the business, but to also support communities and generations that follow,
Yes,
right? So
exactly.
it's very hard to pit the two against each other, right?
Yeah.
Because but is there a solution towards supporting the handmade more than fast fashion? Yes, and that's where the consumer comes
Hmm.
in. More than the
Yeah.
business, it's the consumer that needs to be better informed, that needs to
Hmm.
make the effort to make that hard decision to say, you know what, I'm reading up about the way that the fast fashion brands that I've been shopping from have done a absolute disservice towards their makers because
Hmm.
they are not provided minimum wage. They live in appalling conditions. They work in appalling conditions. So why should I support that cause? The more the consumer asks the question, who made my clothes and in what condition they made my clothes, the more
Hmm.
they'll be able to realize if they are able to tap into their conscience and
Hmm.
realize that, you know what, why should I be supporting this business at all? Why should I give my money to a business that does not support its makers, but is
Hmm.
only in the business of making money, right? So I
Right.
think that informed, not only a conscientious decision, but a more informed decision to say, you know what, I know why I am investing in this brand as opposed
Hmm.
to this handmade brand as opposed to
Right.
this
Yeah.
primarily commercial brand. It is a complicated discussion, and this is a
Hmm.
discussion. What is giving me hope as someone who has, again, I speak from a certain level of privilege, right? Because I come from a family and an upbringing that has always treasured and loved craft. That
Right.
is how I grew up, right?
Yeah.
Fast fashion wasn't a thing for us. We
Hmm.
either made our clothes. We had a ghar ka tailor who would come home
Right.
and yeah,
Yeah.
and measure whatever we wanted. We would buy material from handcraft exhibitions.
Right.
Sushmita and Shalini, since you both lived in Bombay, there used to be these beautiful exhibitions at BKC, Bandra
Yes.
every
Yeah.
Yeah.
winter where they would
Yeah.
invite clusters from different
Different
states,
regions.
and
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
state representation. So we would
Yeah.
buy material from there. My mom would call the tailor home and say, "Acha, inko salwar kameez abhi, tailor
Stitch
karna."
kara do. Hmm.
Right. So that was
Yeah.
we didn't have a Zara and H&M then. We honestly, at least my family did not care, and I didn't
Yeah.
care. That's what we loved, and there was a functional reason, there was a cultural reason, and there was a
Hmm.
traditional reason that and a familiar nostalgic reason that
Yeah.
we loved and treasured handloom,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And for that matter, conscious brands, I would say. I think more than the word sustainable, I would say conscious brands that authentically talk about why they make their products in a certain way. And interestingly, this is a conversation that I have with my students as well. And you know what? I empathize with my students too. Ma'am, all of these handloom, handcraft items are so expensive. I'm like, yeah, I
Hmm.
get it. But if fast fashion is your solution, then maybe um don't look at fast fashion directly. Look at thrifting as an
Hmm.
opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Buy
Or
secondhand, buy thrifted. And by the way, there
yeah.
are more affordable handmade brands now where
And
you can
also
Yeah.
like
Now there are.
instead of buying five tops from Zara, buy one top from some handloom brand or
Get it
local
stitched,
artisan.
huh?
Like yeah, I have like capsule wardrobe. But
yeah.
but I get like we are in an environment where we are constantly like in a it's sort of peer pressure wherein we tend to end up like we end up buying
Absolutely. Oh, yeah,
from
absolutely. Oh my
yeah.
God. FOMO and peer pressure when it comes to, being judged for wearing the same outfit more than once a week is definitely real. I feel again, the more you normalize it, right? It takes
Hmm.
one person to
Yeah.
normalize it. It takes one person to, and this is something that I try to do as much as I can with my students,
Yeah.
right? Have those
Mhm.
conversations, say that understanding how they shop, where do they shop, why they shop. And in some cases, really heartwarming and they themselves suggest, that, oh, ma'am, you should try this thrifting,
Hmm.
these these people that I found online on Instagram. And I think you have to give a little bit of credit here to Instagram because again, that's the best place to, find
Fine.
these
And yeah,
opportunities, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
right.
remember mentoring a startup as well. They were fresh out of college. They're a fashion startup. And I remember mentoring them and telling them that their goal was very simple, that they wanted their consumer, their young Gen Z consumer, to change the way that they look at fast fashion and change the way that they look at handmade. And their
Mm-hmm.
products are
Mm-hmm.
amazing. They do a
Okay.
lot of like multifunctional clothing.
Mm-hmm.
They are a brand called Kiru. You should check them out.
Okay,
Kiru,
Hero.
sure.
run by these two amazing women.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a very clear vision that, we want our consumer to reject fast fashion.
Hmm.
We want a consumer to embrace, the potential of handmade, which is, I think, such an amazing thing. And it's a struggle, right? Because again, like Shani, you rightly pointed out, you're battling against not only like commerce and commercial brands, you're battling against FOMO, you're battling against
Hmm.
people
Yeah.
wanting to be in trend, right? This capitalization and high consumerism is in a way a battle. But then again, you can't stop consumerism. The solution is not stopping consumerism. The solution is not saying that
Shifting. Yeah.
pointing fingers at fast fashion and say you can't
Hmm.
exist anymore. I think
Yeah.
Right,
that
right,
that is too idealistic a environment to be in. I think the
right.
Yeah.
control and the power is with the consumer to make
Hmm.
that decision and make that choice. I'm
Yeah,
happy
Yeah.
that I made
exactly.
that choice many moons ago.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks to my upbringing. But I see my students also, realizing. And again, this is through conversation, this is through discussions that we have in class.
Hmm.
That, maybe going to a Zara and an H&M is not always the answer. Maybe
Right.
going to a Nika or ordering everything from Amazon is not always the answer,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
Support your friends and family first. Support the people who you have a strong narrative and have an authentic purpose behind what they do,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It's
well,
Or
about like the
ever.
yes,
I was
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
just
Go ahead,
saying.
Sushmita. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's about that fine balance, like finding that fine balance where you are able to do both of these things and eventually seeing what is more meaningful for you as a consumer. I think that is the way that people should lead. They should try to understand what makes more sense and where they are able to balance, because we live in a competitive society, as you both pointed out, so, and where FOMO is very real. So I think finding options to make sure that you are also okay and also you are supporting the handicrafts. And I think
Yeah.
there's also one thing that uh, I find really odd is, like, as you were speaking, that I used to go with my mom to all these exhibition, get like handcrafted textile and get it stitched. So these practices, I think, are a little bit lost in the upcoming
Yeah.
generation. So I think we have to go back to these practices to probably develop an interest or a curiosity about different handicraft, so that we will be more curious to find what else is there in India, what else is there in the world also, perhaps, if you want to get a textile from outside India. So I think the curiosity is something that needs to be built in the consumer, and then they themselves will make that decision to slightly try to invest more in the handloom industry in India.
I couldn't agree more, Sushmita. And I think, another thing that should be addressed is the fact that, with certain sections, with certain classes, there is no choice. You have to go with the cheaper option, and
Hmm.
that's okay.
Yeah.
I
Right.
Yeah.
think the more important thing to consider here is, if you have that choice, if you have that option of
Hmm.
choosing between brands, try
Mm-hmm.
to make the more informed choice, right? Do
Right.
your
Yeah.
research, read your labels, read
Hmm.
about the brand. And there are some amazing institutions out there, some amazing authentic voices. Like in India, you have Fashion Revolution.
Right.
Yeah.
Internationally, you have Remake the World, I think, called, where they bring out
Yes.
reports
Yeah.
every year that where they actually have a grading system for each of these brands,
Hmm.
luxury as well as high-end and fast fashion brands,
Hmm.
and give them a great system in terms of, credibility, authenticity, how much are they polluting the environment, and it's an amazingly insightful report,
Yeah.
right?
Their Instagram page is quite insightful. Yeah. The way they
Love it. Yeah.
portray the information. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not going to be an overnight solution, neither is going to be like a solution per se. I think
Hmm.
Yeah.
a mindset shift here is very important.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
what even I feel, that we need to have that shift in our mindset, and like
yeah,
how you describe about that brand Kiro, how they are
yeah,
educating or rather encouraging their audience to choose right thing or make right choices. Even like this discussions like these that we are having right now, or amongst our friends also, like we can
yeah,
tell each other or normalize like wearing same clothes, or in our friend group we also have these sort of conversation all the time, because I also come from similar upbringing wherein I would go to my tailor or take my mom's sari, her wedding sari,
yeah,
and upcycle it into something else. Like I would go with multiple printouts to explain the tailor how can he work on the pattern making, because he wouldn't
yeah.
understand. He would be like, I can't make this outfit from this, but I would go with printouts, like literally, not literally, but sit on his head and explain him, take him through the process. I would like, okay, you do it wrong, but I will make it work. Don't worry about the
Yeah.
end product, just make it.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
you can stylize it and get something out of it. You don't have to worry about like the design part of it. But try doing that and encourage your friend. Maybe like somebody from your group might get encouraged and try
Yeah.
something
New.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And see, it also takes people like you two, like Sushmita and Shalini, like it takes younger voices like yours to also lead from the front and say, you know what, we need to think about the way we consume. We need to think about
Yeah.
the way we shop, right? We need to think about who we are supporting at the end of the day. Where is our money? Where is our investment and our
Yeah.
money going? Like, how is that making a difference to the people who are actually working hard behind the scenes, right? Is that reaching them in some way? And there are some amazing brands in India specifically that do that really well.
Yeah,
From you
definitely.
know, like one of my favorite brands that very actively, two of my favorite brands rather, that actively support and work with artisans so much that they are the face of the brand now is Okai. Okai does an
Yeah.
amazing
Yes.
job at, and,
Yeah.
and and that's always been their MO at the beginning, to
Right.
let
Mhm.
the artisan shine through the
Mhm.
creations that they make.
Right.
And one of my recent favorites is this leather bag brand called Chiaroscuro.
Mhm.
Chiaroscuro is a
Not heard of it.
Gurgaon-based leather brand, and the way they say that, every product is made individually by one artisan, right? And they
Mhm.
actually show the process of weaving the leather in a certain way, treating the leather in a certain way. Beautiful,
Mhm.
beautiful way, and very authentic without having to, go the entertainment approach or
Mhm.
the highly stylized editorial approach, since those
Mhm.
bags are truly beautiful. That
Yeah.
I personally feel that they could give Loewe and Bottega Veneta their money.
Definitely.
Competition.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think if you tell your story as a brand, if you are very clear about how you make your products, if you're very clear about the fact that हमारा जो सारा products है, they are made to order. The minute you order, we will give you an update on how long it will take, who's making our product, how it's been treated, how the material is being treated or dyed, etc. I think that is such a more rewarding experience, as
Yeah.
opposed to, like, even like if you just think really superficially, right, about the experience of consumption, right? You see something at a shop window or an e-commerce site, you like it, you buy it without thinking
Mhm.
about repercussions, or for that matter, how it's going to be rewarding for you personally, right? Are you going to be
Mhm.
wearing that top or that dress or that pair of trousers every week, every month? Is that going to lead to certain conversations in a certain way? Right. So I
Mhm.
think it's important to have these kind of existential these
Questions.
layered conversations and questions.
Yeah.
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 Think about. But
Yeah.
but it's very
Before,
hard to say that there is
yeah.
a solution. I don't think we are that nuanced a species to think of solutions in this regard, right? Yeah,
No, we can definitely like find a balance, not solution, but we can find a balance
yeah,
without
yeah. And and
thinking we
and
can do
ask
that.
questions. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think a
definitely.
consumer should stop asking questions like "price, please," or just leave comments saying "pp" as captions. But I feel like literally say, like ask a brand like who's made your product, like tell us, can you tell me how long it took to make a product,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right? And I
Like
remember,
be,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
I was saying be genuinely interested. Like if you're buying
Yeah,
something, be genuinely interested in it.
yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. It was really great talking to you and a pleasure having this discussion. I have learned so much, and it's
Yeah.
very inspiring to see how nuanced you have in what nuanced thinking you have in terms of every aspect of how a brand should work and how they should strategize based on their consumer. I I think it's also a learning experience for us so that we can think more mindfully of how we want to run this podcast. So I think I'm
Yeah.
really thankful and grateful for you to have this conversation with us. It was really great talking to you. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for being a part of our fashionably awkward banter.
You can listen to this podcast on all podcasting platforms. You can get in touch with us on Instagram at fashionably.awkward. We are super active on Insta, so come say hi.